Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Rosado, and I am the host for this first webinar in the Interim Assessment webinar series. I welcome you to this presentation entitled, What's New on the Smarter Balanced Interim Assessments? This presentation is designed for those who are relatively familiar with the interim system. As returning users, you will learn about the updated features in the interim assessment system. Content-specific interim assessment webinars will be presented and recorded later this month. An overview of the Smarter Balanced English Language Arts Literacy Interim Assessments 101 is scheduled on November 10th, while an overview of the Smarter Balanced Mathematics Interim Assessments 101 is offered on November 14th. New users of the interim assessments are encouraged to participate in the webinar on November 7th, and all users of the interim assessments may be interested in learning about the new AIR WAYS Interim Assessment Reporting System presented on January 19th. Though participants will be muted, questions can be posted using the chat feature in the Q&A platform. All unanswered questions will be addressed at the conclusion of this presentation. Additionally, questions may be emailed to the presenters using the contact information provided at the end of this presentation. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and posted to the CT Core Standards website in the Library of Professional Learning Materials. I'd now like to introduce our presenters. First, Dr. Christy Alberina, ELA Consultant for the Bureau of Student Assessment. Dr. Alberino has worked for the Connecticut State Department of Education for more than 10 years and served in a national leadership role with the Smarter Balanced Consortium with a focus on English language arts across grades 3 through 8 and high school. We also have Ms. Deirdre Ducharme, who has worked with the Department of Education for almost 17 years. As an ELA consultant in student assessment, Ms. Ducharme led the national development of the reading assessments for Smarter Balanced and supports the assessments of English language arts across elementary and middle school. Both of these presenters bring an in-depth understanding of the many components of assessment-related activities, especially in the areas of formative, interim, and summative assessments.
Thank you, Michelle, and I want to welcome everyone. In this presentation, we're going to look at the various purposes for the types of assessments available from the State Department of Education with a focus on the Smarter Balanced Interim Assessments for English language arts and literacy and mathematics. So in the next hour, we'll explain how the interim assessments are administered, scored, and reported. You're also going to learn how to view the interim assessments without beginning a student session. We'll offer some considerations prior to the use of the interim assessment blocks and share just a few of the numerous resources available to you for using interims for instructional and professional development tools in your school and your district. Questions can be posted throughout the presentation using the chat box and Q&A, like Michelle mentioned. However, in the interest of time, we will respond to unanswered questions at the end. First, we're going to talk about the purposes of the variety of assessments that are available within the Smarter Balanced Assessment system. The benefit to using a system of assessments is that the emphasis is not on just one component, as it used to be in the legacy test with the CMT or CAP at the end of the year. Now with the implementation of the Smarter Balanced Assessments, we can take full advantage of a comprehensive assessment system that promotes interim and formative measures that offer teachers a variety of tools that make direct connections between the CT Core standards and groups of focus skills. These systems promote a focus on high-quality instruction with the incorporation of tools that support student learning. As we talk about what the purpose for each assessment is, we really need to talk about what they're not. The summative assessments are not a tool that inform daily instruction in the classroom, and they're not meant to be a diagnostic measure of an individual student's strengths and weaknesses. They're a way to estimate overall performance in a grade level, in a subject area, and to make valid interpretations of student achievement and progress. Summative assessments should not be the only tool used to interpret student achievement. Summative assessment results are really used to inform federal or state reporting, district or school accountability, program evaluation, or identification at the school, state, or district level. Interim assessments, the focus of this presentation, are given periodically, usually a few times a year. You make that decision. They're a valuable measure of domain-level performance, such as reading informational text or focusing on specific mathematical concepts, such as statistics and probability. These short assessments help teachers evaluate student learning and are used at the grade or classroom level. The formative assessment process is used by both teachers and students during instruction to adjust teaching based on feedback and to allow students to know what they need to do to close their own learning gap. The formative assessment process is not standardized. This process is embedded in the learning throughout the school year. So what do the interims provide? The interims benefit both students and teachers. So let's begin with how they benefit students. It allows students the chance to practice on a subset of grade-level appropriate focus skills in math and ELA using an online platform, the same platform they're going to use when they take the summative assessments. The interim blocks include all types of items that are used on the summative assessments. Many of the items are interactive and contain built-in tools such as highlighters, notes, calculators, and because the interims are connected or tied, students who are eligible for accommodations during the summative assessments will have access to those tools as well as any universal tools available to all students. We're going to discuss this a little further on in the presentation, but you will need to manually add that information prior to the interim assessment. The exposure, however, to the expectation within the system is important, and if you opt not to use the interims, we suggest that you at least provide the practice and training tests prior to the administration of the summative assessments. The interim assessments also provide teachers with some benefits. Teachers will find that the interims provide a snapshot of a student's abilities in a specific area. There's a menu of interim assessments available across all grades. The results can be used to identify strengths and weaknesses at the individual or group level and can help teachers inform the next steps for supporting student learning. This can lead to collaborative conversations about teaching within and even across the grades. For instance, a fourth grade class might be struggling with a math skill. Since the mathematics standards are built on progressions, they may be because they missed something in grades 3. In addition, since the topics are divided into blocks containing grade-appropriate skills, teachers can see a natural fit of those blocks within their own curriculum. So as many of you already know, there are two types of Smarter Balanced Interim Assessments: the Interim Comprehensive Assessments, or ICAs, and the Interim Assessment Blocks, or IABs. Both are available at all tested grades, and their use is flexible. Teachers can administer the interims out of grade level if they deem that appropriate. Both are currently available in fixed form tests only. This means neither of these assessments are adaptive. Students taking the same block or comprehensive for grade will see the same items. So we're cautioning you against multiple administrations of the same interim to the same students. So the drawback as a fixed form test, meaning it's not adaptive, is there's only one test available. So if I use the interim as a pre and a post test, the students are going to receive the same exact test twice. Item overexposure becomes an issue and may influence student performance. As many of you recall from last year, we believe there are very few uses for the interim comprehensive in a district. We highly suggest that you contact us if you think you need to administer an interim comprehensive assessment. This year, new blocks were added to the ELA interims to measure writing skills. The edit and revise block that was available last year was broken into 3 blocks that separately measure revision, editing, and language and vocabulary use. With the exception of grade 8, these 3 new blocks are available in grades 3 through 7 and high school. Research, although it's not a new block for the interim assessments, was supplemented with more items, so now there are 18 items each for the research blocks. Each grade has 1 performance task in either opinion argumentative writing, informational explanatory writing, or narrative. Remember that the PT block is the same one that's used in the ICA, and except for grade 11 this year, they're all the same performance tasks as last year. The interim assessment blocks for mathematics have been updated. A group of math educators reviewed the blocks and made recommendations on how to improve them. In order to appropriately address the critical areas in the grade, 11 new blocks were added that measure the following domains: number and operations in base 10, measurement and data, geometry, operations and algebraic thinking, the number system, statistics and probability, and expressions and equations. In addition to the new blocks, 16 blocks were revised. This was done for a variety of reasons, including making the level of difficulty within a block more diverse, broadening the item type within a block, and ensuring the targets addressed within the block better align to the priority and supporting clusters for Claim 1. In total, 186 new items have been added to the math interims. Math IABs assess specific concepts, and these concepts are directly related to the domains at each grade level. These are the blocks for high school. Again, those blocks with 1 asterisk are new this year, and those that have 2 have been revised. Currently, all math online items are machine scored, along with some of the performance task items. The only hand-scored items for math are in the performance tasks. Math machine-scored items include traditional multiple choice, multiple correct multiple choice, hot text, grid, fill-in table, and equation and numeric. Let's discuss how to administer these assessments. But before we can show you how to administer a test, a reminder. We can't stress enough throughout this presentation that everyone needs to have a very clear purpose prior to administering these assessments. They are optional. As we've noted in the original slides, you need to think about what you might do with the information you're going to receive from these tests before opting to incorporate them into your curriculum. And as most of you already know, the interims are housed in the Connecticut portal under the Smarter Balanced Assessment section. Prior to the administration of the interim assessments, designated supports for all students, and test supports and accommodations for special ed, 504, and EL students must be updated and tied for this school year. They don't carry over from last year. Designated supports are available to all students and can be selected by the teacher or teachers who work with them closely. The designated supports are based on the type of supports students already receive in the classroom. An example might be color contrast on the screen or text-to-speech for math items. Text supports or accommodations are available to special ed students with an IEP and 504 students. Select the appropriate accommodations for these students based on the 2016-17 Test Supports Accommodations Form and the comparison chart, both of which are available on the Connecticut State Department of Ed accommodations page. A detailed explanation of this process is available in the TIDE user manual on our portal. Another steps that need to be completed by the teacher prior to the administration of the blocks is to prepare a roster of students who will take the interims. In order to prepare a roster, you have to have a TIDE account. All students who are eligible to test are listed in TIDE, including the supports and accommodations for which they are eligible. Page 34 of the TIDE User Guide, which can be found in the section entitled Manuals for Online Testing, which is in that bottom row on your screen, that has more information. If you've recently accessed TIDE, you'll know that it's been redesigned and it's more user-friendly. So once you're in TIDE, you'll see a section entitled Preparing for Testing on your left, with a tab for rosters that allows you to upload or alter a class roster. As you can see, this is a much simpler homepage schema. Once the roster is prepared, the second step that must be completed is to download the secure browser. Information about this download can be found on the front page of the portal on the right side under Secure Browsers. Again, the entry of student-designated supports and accommodations, the creation of the rosters, and the downloading of this browser must be completed prior to administering the interim to students this year. Now that you've completed these steps, you're ready to administer the interim assessments. All the interim assessments can be accessed through the Test Administration section of the Connecticut Assessment Portal. Using the same secure test administration interface as the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment, teachers will then select the most appropriate interim assessment from a menu.
How are interim assessments scored? The Teacher Hand Scoring System, THSS, is the one platform that supports the scoring of the interim assessments. It is accessed on the Connecticut Assessment Portal with a TIDE username and password, and provides teacher access to open-ended student responses and the ancillary scoring rubrics and training guides that are associated with those specific items. The first step prior to accessing interim results is to determine if the administered block contains items that are machine-scored only, a combination of machine-scored and hand-scored items, or solely hand-scored items, as in the Writing Brief Write blocks. Access to data via the Airways reporting system will be dependent on the types of items comprised within the block. For example, blocks that are entirely machine-scored will yield immediate results available through Airways. However, blocks containing open-ended items will require teacher training for hand scoring and the actual scoring of these items using the teacher hand scoring system before the data is available for that particular block. We will discuss this in more detail shortly. For now, let's review the process for scoring open-ended responses. The teacher hand scoring system contains all interim assessment items completed by students that require hand scoring. Designated teachers or hand scorers will use the THSS to access these items and all scoring material associated with the items, such as scoring rubrics and training guides. As long as the teachers are trained on the items, scoring may be assigned to the primary teacher or other teachers as appropriate. This may be one consideration to minimize the potential of bias. However, scoring assignments are based on the discretion of the school and district administrator. After teachers have reviewed the training materials, they will use the THSS to access a student's response and submit the appropriate score. We will now take a few moments to show you how to access and score student responses. As shown on this slide, when you first log in, you will see all of the responses waiting to be scored. These can be sorted by student name, by item number, and title, session, or status. You will choose the responses you would like to score and then click on the Score button. Scorers and administrators can sort by tests and then, with the appropriate permissions, assign scores to specific items. When you choose the Score option on the right, you first see the rubric associated with the item, and then below that, the question and the student's response. The test item and the student's responses below the rubric look like this. One place you can access the exemplar set and the training guide is above the rubric for the specific item you are scoring. The THSS gives the scorer access to a training guide, which contains directions for using the materials, a stimulus or stimuli if appropriate, the item stem, a rubric, condition codes, and lastly, a chart of the grade level claim and target that corresponds to the item. The exemplar set are the same as those provided last year. Each contains annotated and scored student responses for one item, a check set with annotations, and an answer key. Hand scoring materials are also available in TIDE, which provides access to the training materials without having to administer an interim assessment block. These training materials can be downloaded or exported for more convenient access. From the Connecticut Assessment Portal, select the TIDE card and select the General Resources tab located on the top header. Choose the drop-down menu and select the Teacher Hand Scoring Material. Then, download the zip files of materials sorted by content area and grade, by block or ICA, and then within the block, items are sorted by brief rights, performance task, reading informational text, and reading literary text. These can be downloaded and printed out if necessary. Where can you access the interim assessment reports? Reports are available using the online reporting system as well as Airways. While ICA reporting is similar to the summative, with information available by student, grade, school, and district, these reports only indicate the overall scale score for ELA and math with the corresponding achievement level, and within each claim, the classification of below, at or near, or above standard. You will, in short, receive no more information on the ICA than you will for the summative assessment. The IAB, however, offers reporting by student, class, grade, school, and district, but also by block and by target. You can view a single student's response to each item on the block and compare that response with the average response of the class on the same item. As mentioned, we have two reporting systems currently available. The first is the one you are most familiar with, the Online Reporting System, or ORS, which is the same system you use to access summative score reports. Users of the ORS will still be able to access individual student reports for the interim assessments, but will not have access to the item-level detailed information available in the new Airways system. Airways is our new reporting system designed to provide detailed, item-level student performance reports for interim assessments. Airways consists of a dashboard page and various assessment reports. Assessment reports are available at various levels within a district. Access to each assessment report depends on your user role. The dashboard is the landing page for Airways users. This page displays the sorting options available. If you choose to sort within a column, click on the name. Users can find data by assessment name, such as IAB Grade 3 Editing Block. If I click on that underlying name, I gain access to an incredible amount of information. Our next screen will provide specific examples of that information. Next, I have a column entitled Test Reason, which is a category that the user assigns to a test opportunity, such as Spring Interim or Fall Pretest. If no test reason was assigned to the opportunity, this column displays unassigned, which is what you see on this slide. The dashboard also lets you know the number of students who completed the assessment, and that can be found on the student count column. Average scores are the sum of the assessment scores for all your students divided by the student count, or if you should give an ICA, it will show the scale score. Performance distribution breaks down the percentage of your students who performed at each performance level. Lastly, you can also review tests by the most recent date on which one of your students completed the assessment. I simply click on the underlined assessment to choose a block in the assessment name column to review. I chose the Grade 3 Editing block. The table provides a list of every student who took the assessment block, their ID, and their performance score overall on that block. What I love about this table is that it begins by showing me what everyone did as a group, and then I am able to see where my students fell in relation to the whole group. I can also opt to click on a student's name, and I will see how they specifically did on this assessment block. I will present that example momentarily. But this information is not the end of what is available on this screen. By clicking on the variety of colored vertical bars, I can view the 5 items on which the students performed the best as well as the worst. I see the item number, the maximum points possible, an average of how everyone did on that item, and how each student in this group did on that specific item. I can also get more detailed information just by clicking on the blue item number in a row with a student's name. For example, item 5 for the second child on the list. So by clicking on the blue item number in the same row as the student's name, I can see the metadata for that item, such as the difficulty level and the target to which it aligns. I can also see the item and the answer key in addition to the student's response. The other option is to choose one student from the list and click on their name. The screen then provides a detailed chart on how that child did on the chosen block and how everyone else did in comparison. It also provides you with a performance level for the child. In the interest of time, we are going to have a separate webinar on the features and possible uses of Airways. But we encourage you to really visit this site as interim data begins populating. It is easy to navigate and provides detailed and useful information that can directly impact your instruction.
So how do I view the interim assessments? Like last year, the Assessment Viewing Application, or AVA, is available on the assessment portal. This is still password protected. We encourage you to review the new blocks using this viewing to determine if or how the assessment blocks align to your instructional focus in the classroom, and to consider ways in which these interim tools can be used to support learning. Just a reminder that Smarter Balanced hand scoring training materials are non-secure, non-public. What we'd like is that these materials not be posted publicly, reproduced for commercial purposes, or sold. We have a number of resources available to you. All of the user guides that have been highlighted throughout this presentation by a yellow notepad icon in the top right-hand corner are available on the portal under Manuals. So for information about student and user management, rosters, or appeals, go to the TIDE User Guide. For any questions about administering online tests, you can go to the Test Administrator User Guide. Information about hand scoring questions, there's a Teacher Hand Scoring System User Guide. And lastly, if you have questions about the network, internet, or software requirements, you can visit the Technical Specifications Manual for online testing. Just a reminder that AIR is presenting a webinar on Wednesday, the 9th of November, next week, on the use of the new Airways system. Please click on the front page of our portal for registration information. Here's the address for our portal. This is also a link to access the student assessment newsletter, which you can have sent to you on a weekly basis. And we have a student assessment webpage on the State Department of Ed website. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us. So unanswered questions that were posted during the webinar through the chat and Q&A, we'll address those now. Some of the questions were about the computer adaptivity of the interims. These are not computer adaptive, as we noted in the beginning. These are fixed forms. We had a question about whether or not 504 or special ed students are eligible for text-to-speech. All students are eligible for text-to-speech. Only 504 or special ed students are eligible for text-to-speech on the reading passages. Item level performance on the interim assessments, again, can be found on the Airways platform. We had a question about math blocks and hand scoring. Teacher hand scoring is necessary on the performance task math blocks, but all of the other blocks that are not performance tasks are machine scored. There was a question about whether or not scaled scores will be available for the IABs. No, we will not have any scaled scores available, only the score for each block. And we have, again, posted all of the hand scoring materials on TIDE if you'd like to look at those ahead of time. And you're welcome to go into AVA, the Assessment Viewing Application, where you can see all of the blocks for all of the interims, which can be paused from the teacher station or the student testing station. And we thank you for participating in this presentation. If you have any questions that haven't been answered, we do hope that you will contact us, and we wish you a great afternoon and a successful school year.